Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to our Tea Time with Ashira Datya, the author of Resisting Evil, a brand new book from Bay Courts Publishing that is releasing today. Thank you so much for joining us here in our party room, live in Bay Courts Party Room on Facebook. We're also live on YouTube, so if you're following the link that we have available, you can watch it there, watch it anywhere. Thank you so much. I am KT Cito. I am the marketing director for Fake Horse Publishing, and I have the joy to have with me today Ashira Datya. Ashira, how are you today?
Doing well. How are you?
All right. She is the author of numerous books, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, and the author of her brand new series, the Magic series, and Resisting Evil is the very first book in that series. Thank you so much for putting this out into the world. How are you feeling today?
Nervous and excited.
Yes, this is pretty exciting. I mean, this is the first book that you've published with us, and you were a joy to work with. We really enjoyed your work and putting it together for you to make it a cohesive thing that you can put out into the world. We're really, really happy to help you birth this baby. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your other works before we start talking about Resisting Evil specifically.
Well, I was born and raised in Michigan. I have a very supportive husband and 3 chaotic children. I've been writing for a while, and the Life trilogy, which is my first published works, not the first thing I've written, just the first thing I've pushed out there. That trilogy, as I mentioned a little bit yesterday on the live that I did, holds a very special place. It deals with cystic fibrosis, which is a condition that affects 1 in 3 people are carriers of the gene. My cousin actually passed away from it in 2003. And I've kind of made it my mission to put as much information out there as I can. So I just decided, I needed to do something that was a little different than just, hey, I'm raising awareness and money for this foundation. Give me money, give me money.
Yeah, it's always good when you give something back and give something in return. It's like, don't just give me your money because, you know what, you'll get this too.
Right.
People always like a gift.
Absolutely.
All right. So what was the first series about, if you don't mind me asking?
The first series follows a young woman named Sarah, whose brother had passed away from CF recently, and her first love is his best friend, who also suffers from cystic fibrosis. And it follows their journey as from friends to lovers. It follows Sarah to the young man she eventually ends up being with. And then the second book deals with Sarah's daughter. The third book, her granddaughter. So it's each member of the family, they have their own little story, and they all tie in together. So start with life lost, love gained, and then go on to the other ones. Otherwise, they're not going to make as much sense.
Okay. All right. So how did you go from, I understand that the first series was a romance. How did you go from cystic fibrosis, which is really serious and deep and introspective subject, to werewolves?
I read a lot of romance novels. It's my guilty pleasure.
Mine too.
And I really love the Dark Hunter series. I really love, and I've read so many different where romance is, and I was wondering, I wonder if I could actually pull that off, because it's so different. Normally when I write, I like to have a sense of realism. To me, unless I'm reading a fantasy story, like Lord of the Rings ish, if there
Mhm.
isn't that sense of realism, I just look at the book like, what am I reading? The characters have to feel real. The book has to feel real. And I wanted to see if I could incorporate some of that realism with some supernatural. Um, I mean, that's such a big genre right now. I mean, you have Supernatural that just ended 15 years on TV. You have Charmed, you had Buffy, there's Angel, or all this stuff. And I love that stuff. So I wanted to see if I
Yeah,
could do it.
it's very very much in market right now to write these shifter type romance,
Mm-hmm.
and I have read a fair share of those myself, so I am very very familiar with the idea of the shifter romance and the genre itself, which is why I really enjoyed reading and editing your work, because I was like, oh, new shifter. But it really is a departure from what you did before. Um, so, have you ever gotten uh, reader's block, so to speak? So, is there any time where you've been like, I can't read any of this anymore. I'm just gonna write, or I just can't read. Period.
Um, Not really. There are times when it's like, all right, I need to step away from the romance genre, and then I'll go find some Robin Cook, um, I'll go to my favorite of all time books, Exodus by Leon Uris. That was written a long ass time ago. I'm on my third copy of the book. That's how much I enjoy this book. So if I get a little just a little too worn out from the romance, I'll go towards those more serious genres, read it for a bit, and then I'd say within a couple of weeks I'm right back into it.
So one of the things I liked about your book was the characters, and you have characters that are just kind of all over the place. There's werewolves, there's witches, there's so much going on. But the love interest for the main character, that guy, he was such an alpha male, and it actually felt like an actual guy. There's so many times when you read the shifter, we're both fans. You read the shifter man romances, and the guys seem just kind of like testosterone driven, larger than life.
Yeah.
They're not real. They're caricatures of
Right.
uh, men actually are. How do you approach writing the opposite sex in such a way that it doesn't come off with as a cardboard, all right, this is what I think a guy is?
Um, I take it from, I look at the guys that are in my life, my brother, my ex, my dad, my husband, friends of ours, and I think, okay, how would they handle a similar situation? How would they react if somebody they loved was in danger, if somebody was after them, if somebody was flirting with them? What would their reactions be? Um, and then I just try to kind of mold it into its own entity as far as that goes, always keeping in the back of my mind how the men in my life would respond to the various situations, and just take it from there.
Awesome. So why don't you tell us a little bit about this book, about resisting evil, first tell us about the world it's set in,
Mm-hmm.
and then tell us about the book itself.
So the world it's set in, it's kind of, and I'm really bad at explaining the worlds I create. I'm sorry. It's kind of, it's the real world, but it's the real world that's hidden. It's what, everybody knows that there's something out there. We have this feeling that there's possibly something more than what we see. We don't know what it is, but there's something there. And so it's the real world. It's, it takes place. God, I wrote this book 10 years ago, originally. Actually, I had it on literotica.com. All of my stuff was there for a really long time. And I pulled it down in the last couple of years to edit it and publish it and get it out there. But it takes place, this originally took place like 10 years ago, but I like how I don't put actual dates necessarily. It could transcend, I wrote it 10 years ago, but technology it's changed, but things haven't changed so drastically that it can't sound like it could be happening here and now. So, it's the real world. I didn't specify towns or states or anything like that. This was one of the earliest things that I wrote. And I wanted it to be something that you could look at and say, wow, this could be happening 5 towns over, or right next to me, or wherever, and still have the ability to, at least on some level, relate to what's happening, not necessarily the supernatural, unless, of course, someone's got a cauldron in the back or something. But
You never know.
We never know.
So you took the real world and you just superimposed your magic system on top of it. So how did you come up with the rules for your magic? When you were working on your world building, did you have a template that you used? Did you have some things in mind before, or did you kind of pants it and figure it out as you went along?
I kind of just played with it as I went along. And to be honest, when I was writing this 10 years ago, my older kids were really little. And when they'd be playing and I'd be watching something on TV just to kind of keep me from going too crazy. To be honest, I was watching a lot of Charmed. So I kind of borrowed some of the ideas from Charmed, from Supernatural, from Buffy, and just kind of tweaked everything to fit. I didn't, I hopefully didn't blatantly outright take something, but there's a...
No, you didn't, because we would have caught that in the editing.
There's a quote from The West Wing that Aaron Sorkin did in the 90s. Good writers borrow, great authors steal outright. So I didn't want to steal anything, but there's nothing wrong with taking ideas from something and tweaking it to fit your needs.
Well, you know what? It might be, you might have gotten your idea from one place, but you made it your own, and that's what counts. There are a million different iterations of every story out there. We've been telling the same stories over and over again. Throughout history, Romeo and Juliet. How many different versions of that have you seen? There are things that are clearly not Romeo and Juliet, but they've got the Romeo and Juliet storyline running right through that movie. Yep. Or that book, so you actually recognize the themes, because themes are universal. It's the author that creates the variation that makes it unique. So tell us about Resisting Evil itself. This book, which I have to say I really enjoyed.
Well, good. So Resisting Evil is the story of 2 people. Actually, it's not just 2 people. It focuses on 2 whole families that come together. There's Beth, who is the main female character for Resisting Evil, at least the first half of it. And she meets Cole, this dark, mysterious, sexy social studies teacher. And she doesn't know what...
Social studies is so sexy. It's just...
Well, Harrison Ford was a pretty hot Indiana Jones.
Yeah, teachers look like teachers, like people. People,
Yeah.
they run the gamut. They're not all this old bespectacled ladies standing in their house dress teaching school anymore.
No,
Or ruler in their hands. They're regular people.
no, they're not. And she doesn't know what quite to make of him. There's something about him. She can't put her finger on it. He's just a little dangerous. And she's the good girl. She's never crossed that line before, but you know what they say. The quiet ones are the ones you have to watch out for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Still waters run deep. Still waters run deep. Okay, so what comes first for you when you're writing? Do you get a character in your head, or do you get an idea for a story in your head? What's your process look like?
So the idea always comes first. And a lot of them come while I'm sleeping, believe it or not. I'll have this dream, and I'll be like, what the fuck was that? And I'll pull up the computer, or a notebook, and start writing or typing, and it just kind of flows together from there. And then I tweak it. I go back through and I reread it, and I'm like, well, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And I tweak it and I self-edit as I go. And eventually I come up with something. I'm like, well, this could be something.
What part of this book was the most fun to write? Do you have a favorite part or scene or character?
Honestly, my favorite part of writing this was the magic. I've never done something like this before. I've never done the supernatural. I've never done anything like that. Everything else that I've written has been real world, real situations. Things that I've experienced, things I know about, things that I don't have to necessarily, Google. Which is a lot easier than
down the Google rabbit hole.
A lot easier than Britannica. So it was really exciting for me to try something new. I see a lot of myself in Beth. I grew up very reserved, very quiet. I don't think I used the word fuck until I was 25 years old. If I did, my mother would look at me like, no.
Yes, I was the same way. I didn't let loose until I was like, okay, am I not living with her anymore? Cool.
Yeah, I was the teacher's kid. My dad taught in my school district. Every guy in my district was intimidated by him, at least then.
That's really bad for your dating situation.
It was, yes. Actually, the first guy I dated moved into our district junior year, between sophomore and junior year. And my ex actually grew up in a district two or three towns away. He met a friend of mine online and came to a football game, and regretfully we hit it off. But it's funny because the man I'm married to now, I grew up across the lake from. We went to school together, just a couple years apart, and he made no secret that he was interested in me. But there's 3 years apart, which isn't a big deal when you're in your 20s and your 30s. But when you're 17 and he's 14, it's a bit of a, and it's like, no, that's no. And I mean, it all obviously worked out, but it's like, I was so quiet. I was so reserved. And I mean, even now, if I meet somebody and I don't know them, I am the little church mouse in the corner until I start to feel comfortable with them. And then I don't shut up.
Introverts unite alone in the house.
Yep.
Definitely. So, this is the first book in the Magic series.
Mhm.
Do you have, how many books do you have planned for the series itself? Do you
Two
know
and three
already?
are 2 and 3 are done and just waiting to be edited, and I'm working on 4 right now. I don't know how long it's gonna go. It depends on how my brain acts. I've seriously got like 6 stories right now that I'm working on. And I'll be writing one for a while, and then I had this really weird dream a week or so ago. And I started writing it, and I think I'm at like 50 pages already. It's like, well, okay, what about these guys? Like, no, you're gonna just chill.
Yeah, that writer squirrel brain. I think we all have that.
I don't know what's more exhausting, editing or coming up with it in the first place.
I hate editing. Which is why I will gladly do all the marketing images and marketing that you want me to do. Ask me to interview, but please don't ask me to edit. I mean, I can do it. I just hate it. Hate it.
Yeah, and
It's a guaranteed way to make me hate my story and think it's horrible and never put it out. That's what editing is for me. I don't mind editing other people's work so much as I mind editing myself, but it's like the death.
we're
It's like,
less critical with other people's things than we are our own.
yeah, I think
My
so.
my dad is a retired math teacher, math and social studies, but he impressed upon me the importance of speaking properly, of writing properly. I think I was the only kindergartner speaking proper English sentences. Because if the word ain't was not allowed in the house. The phrase "I
That
can't."
must be a math teacher thing, because my dad was a math teacher while he was working towards his doctorate,
Mhm.
and I swear,
The,
growing up, same thing. You
yeah,
know what? Why are you? No, speak English.
yes, the phrase "I can't" was not allowed in my house. We could say "I can't do this yet," but there couldn't be a definitive "I can't do this."
Mm-hmm.
He would look at me over the bridge of his glasses with that disapproving parental teacher look, and you know the look I'm talking about. And
Yeah, all dads kind of have that look. Have a look.
oh,
Like,
the kids at school,
and you're like, okay, daddy.
the kids at school would complain about him, and I'd look at him. At least you don't have to go home to him at the end of the day. You get away from him.
You get to go home and not see that.
Yes.
So we've got 3 finished. We got 4 on the way.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to Are you going to move to another series after this one, or are you going to stick here for a little while? You said you had one idea. Is that in the same world, or is it?
No, it's the other books that I've got in my head are more real world. I actually have a series that most of the stuff that I have probably 20 finished books or stories on my computer that I have written in the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they just need to be polished. And actually, in fact, originally Resisting Evil, the way I have it, Beth's story was completely separate. Raven's story was completely separate. They all intermingled and intertwined. I mean, come on, honestly, life isn't just 2 people at once. It's
right. It isn't.
This going on, that's going on, that's going on, and they all, my friend's drama comes this way, my drama goes that way, and I don't know if I'm the only one, but it bugs me when a book doesn't have any focus at all on any of the side characters, because they've got their own stuff going on. They don't drop everything because, oh my god, I met a hot guy, and oh my god, I slept with him. It doesn't stop. Their stuff doesn't stop because this person's having this crisis. So
the romance is the background for you, even though these are paranormal romance books. The romance isn't the whole story. The romance is the side story to everything else.
I mean, the romance is important to be sure.
but when you read the book, it all ties together. And so it makes it feel like, all right, this is the story of the romance, and these are the things that are interrupting the romance, but the romance is the point. And I really liked that about your book. That's one of the things I enjoyed about it so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so you said that you wrote this book how many years ago? 10 years ago, right?
About.
Is this completely different than what you wrote to begin with, or is it the same?
The biggest difference is half of Raven's story takes place in Beth's book, whereas, like I said, originally they were all separate. And when I started looking at publishing it, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, this doesn't feel like a whole book. I know that's a series. I have this whole series planned, but it doesn't feel like a book. It feels like something's missing. It doesn't feel long enough. And I started to think, well, can I justify charging people money for half of a book? If it's one thing that annoys me the most, it's I'll pay $3 or $4.
Chuck Tingle can sell books, and then you can pretty much do whatever you want. And
so I'll pay like $3 for a book,
different.
And it'll be like 80 pages, and I'll be like, I paid $3 for 80 pages. It's like, are the pages made out of gold or something? Because I have no problem paying money for books. I have so many books. I have a 6-foot-tall bookshelf in my living room. I have a 6-foot-tall bookshelf down in my basement. I have one of those little 3-shelf books filled with books. I have books in 18-gallon totes. I probably have like 3 or 4 of them lying around somewhere. I have a Foot Locker at my parents' house in their basement filled with books. I had no problem.
I understand. I have a bibliophobia, and so therefore, I will just put it this way: I read an average book a day, and I don't give anything away. So I'm in my late 40s. Do the math.
Yep.
I live in a library.
That would be fantastic.
Okay. I married a man who's just like that, so we don't have a problem.
It's funny, John's like, why do you have to keep buying these books? That's what the library's for. And I'm like, well, one, because we live in the middle of nowhere, and the library doesn't have all of the books they don't have any of the new Nora Roberts books at all.
Ooh.
It's like,
really?
Well, they have some of them, but they take forever to get them.
Yeah. So you have to buy them.
And he's like, well, what about your Kindle? I'm like, I want to smell and touch the books.
That's so when we travel.
I'm like Giles.
Restrictions.
I have a Kindle and I love my Kindle, but I'm like Giles in the respect that they don't smell on the Kindle. I want that book smell.
And Kindles are not really good for bathtubs.
Well, neither's a paperback either. You drop that paperback and it's gone too.
Yes, yeah.
I don't read in the tub. I take the bath and then I go read.
Well, we got off a sidetrack as usual, as I do. When can we expect book 2 from you? Are you in the beginning stages of editing, or where are you with that?
It's in the Faycourt email address. I sent it to Sin and Patty already.
All right, so we have already gotten started. So it looks like that's probably going to be on the 22 schedule. We haven't had a meeting about that yet, though.
As soon as you can get it done.
We'll promise this. We haven't had a meeting about 2022 yet, so you did not hear me say that. Potentially.
It's only May.
Yeah, it's only May. Potentially. Well, 2021 is set. So I'm going to do some housekeeping here at the end here. Mm-hmm. I want to get ready to wrap this up. 2021 is set. We have 2 more anthologies coming out at Faycourt. We have 4 more single author works that are coming out between now and the end of the year. And as usual, we are still going to be pushing the authors that have come out in the beginning of the year. Well, this has been a really fruitful spring for us. We had Bonnie's book of short stories, we had Ivor's book of poetry, and now we've got Ashira's paranormal romance. And we're really super excited about this because this is the first single author work that we've done that is not a compilation of other works. It is a complete work in and of itself, and it is the basically the flagship for the single author titles that we have going on. I'm excited about Little by Little. September, we've got our first children's book that we're publishing that from an outside author, because the founders of Fave Core, Patty and Sin, have both published children's books before they founded the company. And now that we got the company, they're going to put some more out. But we've also got other children's book authors that are coming in. So that's another thing that's coming into Fave Core that we're excited about. And then Ashira's got our romance off, is kicking off the romance leg. She's going to be the first book in that genre for us. That's coming out in 2021. And then we've got a horror book coming out from Raz. Halloween, which is apt. Raz's book is coming out Halloween. That's going to be kicking off the horror genre for Fake Horror. So Fake Horror is not just fairies anymore. It's growing. It's fantasy. It's everything, and it's life. And we are giving authors voice and giving authors, marginalized authors, and a new author's voice and place and space in the world, and we're super excited about that. I'm so happy that you all joined us today. My conversation with Ashira, celebrating her new book. Thank you for having tea time with Kat and Ashira, and go out and get yourself a copy of Resisting Evil. It is on sale today. It launched today. Pre-orders are done. No more pre-ordering. Now you just order it, read it, review it, tell your friends. And thank you so much for joining us and coming in. Have a good day now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.